Hey, what's going on?
Hey, not a lot. How you doing today, Big John?
Oh, it's another day in paradise, right?
Yeah. You know what's funny? So I hit Mike up to get your contact info, and I was like, "Hey, what's Big John's contact info so I can have him on?" This is the first time when I got your phone number that I'd seen your last name.
Oh, okay.
Basically, where I'm going with that. So,
That's okay.
well,
We go through life sometimes just not knowing people's last names, man. It happens.
yeah. I mean, literally, because I remember the first time that we met, I was training for worlds or pans or something, and you were a purple belt and I was a purple belt, and we rolled one day and you totally annihilated my knee shield. And I was like, who is this guy? Oh my gosh.
Just an old man. That's all I am. Just an old man.
With some cool martial arts stories is what I hear.
I've been around a bit, seen a little bit. Just like anybody aging that's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I will say some of the stuff I wanted to hear your take on are things I repeatedly have gotten into since I've become involved. Things and people, JKD concepts. I've
Hmm.
been watching tons of old Inosanto instructionals. I bought a couple instructionals from his website, but also I recently got a login to Chai, to the
Yeah.
World Thai Boxing. So, man, I love Greg Nelson. I mean, there's just so many of these guys that are interconnected, and I know that you've had to, trained with some of these people. So, I thought we could talk about some of that.
Sure. Whatever you want. You hit me up and we'll talk about it. You tell me what you want to hear.
Well, first off, I do a bunch of different podcasts, but obviously this is the martial arts one.
Gotcha.
Um, you know, this question I ask pretty much anybody that pretty much gets the ball rolling down this lane is, how did you get involved? Like, when did you first start getting involved with martial arts, and how did that kind of start plugging you into some of these people?
So, I think I was a late bloomer, for lack of a better word. I joined the Air Force in 1988. I didn't get involved in martial arts till um, probably let's just say from 1993 I was in Germany. So from 93 to 96, 97, I was in Montana. And that's really where I kind of got started. There was another kid who was a bit younger than me, quite a bit younger than me. Uh, so his name was Jerry Smith. Short, stocky, Japanese kid, actually Japanese Irish, I believe. But his dad was a SEAL team member back in the day. So kind of started doing and got hooked up with Jerry. We trained, he trained me. Went down the Paul Vunak route.
I've been watching some old Paul Vunak stuff. I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
So yeah, so we started with that, and then went out to California, and then started my apprenticeship, if you will, up to a full instructor at the end of that time frame underneath Paul. But also in the mix, we found an old Japanese guy in Great Falls, Montana. His name was Shigeki Unamoto. I would call him like the equivalent to a mixed martial artist in the traditional sense. Born and raised Japan, trained in Japan, Martial Art Institute, whatever the college is. And I can't remember all his accolades, but he was like a sixth in judo, and then fourth or something in Hapkido, and then Taekwondo, and had a handful of guys who fought the Sabaki challenges early years. He's just kind of this gem that was kind of located in Montana, just kind of out of the blue. So we trained basically a Sabaki style kind of karate with him and judo. So I was kind of doing both of those at the same time while I was in Montana. So that kind of how I kind of got into martial arts, kind of stumbled into it accidentally. And then by meeting Vu, that kind of led to some other things. And then, training at the Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu Club when it first opened up, and there you go, here I am. And there's more. Obviously I met more people along the road and I think I was more of a luck of chance, maybe, or a bit of chance. I would just happen to be able to train with or be underneath some of the top guys in the world at that current time frame.
Yeah, I will say I'm quite interested. I've been watching a bunch of Inosanto stuff, as I mentioned, but I follow Vunak on social media and have hopped on his website a time or two and watched his whole instructionals, and it's super interesting stuff. And that's like this, me as a historian of this information also. As soon as you said Navy SEALs and stuff you're talking about, I was like, I wonder if he knows Paul Vunak, and then you bring it up. So, yeah. I mean, how many years did you train in his, what is his system called, by Progressive Fighting Systems?
Progressive Fighting Systems, I think. I mean, so from probably once I got back into the States in 98, probably for at least 4 or 5 years, I was under Boo and continued to train.
You know, I will say probably, you said 98?
Yeah, and I kind of string things along by assignments in the military, because I was in Germany from 1993. Then when I got back there, I was in Montana, started down that path in Montana, probably say maybe 95, 96 time frame, 94. I started with VU then, and that carried through to the late 90s, maybe 98, 97, yeah, somewhere in there.
You know, a lot of the stuff I've seen from him is probably late 80s, early 90s, and I've really wondered, and that's really all I've seen from him. I started following him recently on social media, but I thought about trying to contact him and get him on the podcast, because I've wondered how he's evolved his game, because I feel like based off how he communicates, I feel like he probably has, and I'm interested in how he's kept things going, you know.
I mean, he's pretty innovative. You go back in time when I was still doing stuff with Guru Inosanto, you know, some of the sideline conversations about VU or whatever at that time, especially, he's one of the best guys who combined Filipino martial arts in Junfon and JKD into kind of a single, seamless, pretty direct kind of fighting system. It was pretty well stripped down, but well executed. I mean, one time I was messing with him, had my guys come out and we were doing some stuff, and he didn't like what I was doing, and we sparred a little bit, if you want to call it that. And I mean, he literally beat me like right out of the room. I mean, the guy opened the door around like second floor aerobics room. And when he laid into me, when he finally entered and laid into me, I mean, I was just going backwards, and the guy opened the door and I kind of went outside, and I think that's where we ended it. And, you know, so it's terrifying and utterly impressive when you're in the middle of it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it just trying, you know, I know that he is, I guess, I'm not 100% sure about the workings of how the instructors work, but he's a full instructor and directly underneath Guru Inosanto. Is that correct? I
don't know if he's still underneath Guru, but I mean, he's in that lineage. Yeah, he was a full in the early years too. I mean,
like 77, so, I think, is when I saw he started training.
Yeah, and then he was even training with the Gracies very early on when they hit the United States as well. Taking privates and doing stuff with them, if I remember correctly. It's a lot of years ago. I'm 52 now, so I was a bit of a younger man then. But yeah, so that was kind of my first introduction, if you will, into like progressive systems, or an asymmetrical type of system, for lack of a better word.
And so you've trained a lot with Guru Inosanto over the years as well?
Yeah. So basically, what happened is when I left Montana, I ended up in Nebraska, in Omaha. So to kind of put this together, I kind of went to a school that was another kind of JKD type school, and they did supposedly grappling, but it was mostly Larry Hartzell's kind of stuff, mixed with JKD and Junfon. That guy's was underneath Terry Gibson, the late Terry Gibson out of
Tulsa, yeah.
Right. So when Terry passed, then the owner of the school kind of fell underneath Mark McFan. That's how I met Mark. So then through Mark and in Mark's program, and Mr. McFan is, you know, one of my best friends in the world today. Him and his family are very close to me. But started down that path, and that's how I got introduced into Chai, Inosanto, in Dr. Ma Wang-Ji, training with those guys, the International Bondo Association, for a wee bit. I mean, it was nothing special. We just did some training with those guys, but that's how I started on the other paths, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, that's such. Okay, so I remember when Caleb had Sean Shirkin. Did you go to that seminar?
No, but I know, I did not. So that was when was that? How long ago was that?
Oh man, probably 2012. This might
Yeah,
have been.
and you know, Sean is a product of Nelson, right? Greg.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So funny story about that. Like, first of all, I now have Greg Nelson's Clinch volumes 1 through 5. Okay.
yeah, which is actually a beautiful.
Oh, it's but okay. So I remember being broke in college, not being able to afford it, but like watching him on YouTube all the time. And at this time, when Shirk comes in, I'm kind of really getting into Nelson at that time, and like I can't afford his DVDs because I'm like a broke college student that owns a martial arts gym and works at the history department. But I remember being like standing next to McFan, and I think Rodney Hitchcock was there. It's like some JKD guys came out, and McFan was like, "Hey, how's it, Greg?" And I was like, "Guys, he's talking about Greg Nelson, the clinch
Yeah.
guy." But man, that guy has such an amazing story. I just found out somewhat recently that he had survived cancer twice.
Well, at the time too, I mean, had a form of cancer that nobody had ever survived from. I can't remember which one it was, but I mean, every day he was alive was another milestone in the medical profession on how to deal with his illness. One of my old students, who I think has kind of surpassed me somewhat to a certain extent, is a guy named Aaron Cerrone, who runs Mid America Martial Arts. So I taught him base there. When I left, everything kind of got turned over to Aaron, and Aaron took it off base and has put together a remarkable establishment with great people, great coaches. And actually, he's one of Chai's favorites now. I mean, Aaron is pretty slick. But back in the day, when we used to bring Eric in, and a couple of times brought Eric and Greg in, one of the times that Greg came in he was about 80% on the recovery after the dealing with the cancer. Even then, I mean, the guy was, a trooper. I mean, you're talking probably about the nicest, gentlest, most spiritual, clean living man. I mean, you can never probably come across, and here he is fighting through this. So,
Yeah. I
Go
know he
ahead.
said one was on his like maybe a tumor on his sciatic nerve or pressing against his sciatic nerve, which I had never heard of. And I can imagine, I mean, if you've ever had any sciatic nerve issues, how terrible that would be.
Well, yeah, even to the point where when we had him this time, also I was going up we went up to Minnesota to train at his school for a seminar as well, a couple times. But at this time back in Omaha, I mean, he had no real feeling like in his right foot, his right leg. So when he walked, he had a cane at that time, and then you look at him today, and I mean, it's pretty insane.
Man, I was so inspired by the videos he was putting out of him just like training at his house when COVID first started. I was just like, and I was like doing him and Daniel O'Brien. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a Johnny Lee Smith guy, which is this law enforcement jiu-jitsu black belt that Caleb knows. But they were putting out when COVID first started, when gym was shut down, they were putting out these training videos, and I was just like, yes. And I was ripping them off, man. I was doing the same workouts, or we'd have open mats, or I'd train with people, Zoom classes.
Oh,
but, yeah. Yeah, he's always been a big inspiration, though, and even more so the more I found out about him is that his life story, and luckily I've found out some of that on a podcast. He's been doing podcasts during the last year or so.
Yeah, it's funny when you start sitting down and you chat, which I found. I mean, in the moment when you're younger, you don't really realize it, but as you get older, that when you're talking to these people who basically the start of the sport, for lack of a better word, the transition where non-traditional martial arts became traditional or mainstream, the evolution and part of the history that they were in and still are in, and what they've seen and what they've gone through, is pretty remarkable, actually. And sometimes we can learn more from just listening than we ever do from actually doing sometimes. So, I mean, if it wasn't for those guys, we wouldn't be where we are today.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, particularly some of these names that we've talked about already, Inosanto, Chai, Mark McFan in Arkansas. I
Mhm.
mean, um, Vunak. Those are some of the most, I'm inspired by those martial artists the most, So, what do you remember what it was like or where when you trained with Chai for the first time?
I think the first time was a seminar in Tulsa. I mean, I went with Mark and his a lot of us from this part of Arkansas. I think I was stationed up in Nebraska still, and training with Mark via that route. And we went down to Chai, and don't ask me what year that was. It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But yeah, it was pretty amazing when you look at a guy. I mean, his Chai can be terrifying. Um, and we were still, I mean, the seminars were still pretty brutal. I mean, they were still pretty rough, and watching people test and in the militaristic manner in which they were run, it was pretty no nonsense, which was kind of refreshing though too. It was kind of cool. So that's one reason why I gravitated towards it. And he's a great guy. I mean, he's fun to talk to as well. Try is a treat. Trust me.
So I've been watching his old seminars from like 93,
Oh yeah.
But there's one, and it may have been part of a testing or something. I haven't even finished the whole seminar because it's like 3 hour and a half videos or something. Right.
Probably.
But he was making all of these individual guys do just double rear leg, double lead leg, double rear leg, double lead leg forever, probably 5 minutes each. And then he was like teeping them and stuff, keeping them real honest.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can remember on a whistle we would, I don't know, did left switch kick for about 20 minutes before we even switched. Because he thought that we needed to do that. I mean, obviously we did need to do it because otherwise we wouldn't have done it. So, but yeah, I mean, he's got a great way of teaching, and he's got a good approach, and he's a good-hearted person as well. If you go back to his lineage, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he was Guru Dan's, I think, first real Thai boxing coach.
Yes, I was going to ask you what you knew about that connection, because I know that Chai, and I assume that he's trained in some JKD with Inosanto as well. Like it's been a two-way street for him. But
I'm sure there has, but I'm not too savvy on how give or take the relationship was. But I'm sure there was some exchange of ideas, as there would be. I mean, you get two kind of profound minds in a room together, that there's going to be an exchange of ideas and concepts, and a little road testing as well from time to time. So.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard Inosanto say this, and I could be making some false. So I've watched a lot of what Inosanto's done over the years with just June Fan kickboxing. Mm-hmm. Same thing. Vunak has a couple of instructionals out over that, and he's like in things like countering kicks. Have seen a lot of similarities with things that I've seen Chai show, but it's like Inosanto's the first guy I heard kind of make the point of like, look at this martial art over here, this Wing Chun over here, and look at this. They didn't have any interaction, and they're going on at these two different times, and unbeknownst to each other, and that's common as well. There's only so many ways to counter a kick, I suppose, and everybody's going to be doing similar ways for sure.
Well, yeah, you can look at, I mean, one thing Guru does very well through history, because I think he was a history teacher and we taught high school going back in time. So the way he collects data, correlates the data in a chronological fashion, and then expresses it to his students is pretty phenomenal. So if you look at just, the geopolitical setup and how the world was at certain times, certain years, I'm going back way in time. That's why you see similarities in certain systems across different continents now, especially in the fighting arts. When you start talking weaponry as an example, and you start to understand the difference between why is this a short sword, a long sword? Why do they fight in this style versus this style? And then you start talking about beliefs of religion, how that influences the fighting arts as well. So I mean, yeah, you get kind of this instead of it being this really drilled down thing you're doing, you realize you're a part of something much bigger. And it's just I look at like a rung of an umbrella, right? This is just a rung, but it all goes to the center of the umbrella where it pops open. So when you start realizing how everything kind of gravitates towards the center in some form or fashion, it becomes kind of a little bit mind blowing.
Yeah. So how long have you been hooked up with McFan? I mean, I've been around him a couple of times. I've never had a chance to train with him.
I've known Mark, let's just say for argument's sake, since probably 98. So as student instructor, as a start, and then close friends, and I would consider family. So, you know, kind of transcended the martial arts system and went into a more personal relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I've, you know, just in researching all this stuff, like looking for JKD information online the whole time I've been involved. I've seen he has some old tapes that are out there on YouTube of him doing like Hubud against up kicks and stuff like that. Stuff that I've seen maybe nowhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like innovative, what I was saying, and maybe that's a common thing in those circles, but I
think it is. I mean, if you go back, I mean, the circle was a very tight circle of a lot of people. I mean, in that group of, you know, Mark and Terry Gibson, Greg Nelson, Eric Polson, and we can start stepping down to even some other people that are been around a long time, that have been with Guru for 20, 30 plus years, 40 years. So just the essence of that is that those were all free thinkers and pretty innovative. The one thing that's probably key is I think most people started out in some sort of traditional martial art in some form or fashion, whether it was judo or karate or Wing Chun or, you know, Hapkido. If you look at, I think even Guru obviously was learning Kali and the Eskrima stuff when he was younger, based off of where his family origins and where they lived in California, you know, but was an Ed Parker student as well, you know. So it's pretty crazy, you know.
How much, excuse me, how much have you done with stick and knife Filipino stuff over the years?
20, as long as I've been training, probably that long. So let's just say since 98 or 99. Now, over the last X number of years, or 10 years or more, or probably 15 years, I didn't gravitate away. I just kind of transitioned, and I started to focus more on grappling and jiu-jitsu. I mean, one of my first loves was actually Kali. I really enjoyed it. I mean, but being in the military and stuff, it got kind of difficult to kind of maintain all these instructorships and all my training with these people. And at some point, as I gained rank in the military, then my time to be a part or be away to do stuff became a little bit more difficult. Family, kids, you know, pick with something. So I really started to focus mostly on the jiu-jitsu aspect of it. And I think I kept Thai boxing up for a while. Then I kind of had to get away from that for a little bit as well. But I do gravitate back and forth periodically. Yeah,
I mean, that's, you know, that's something I've thought about a lot. It's like, I want to I study those arts regularly and have ever since I've been involved, but it's like to go to camps and like what you're saying, for me as a school owner and teaching at the college and do, you know, already maintaining relationships, it would be a struggle for sure.
Well, it becomes hard, I think, and I think when we're younger, I think for a lot of us, it's the fear of missing out. So the fear of missing out drives us to load up our training schedule to a certain extent out of ignorance. And I think that as we get older, I think we can tend to be a bit more selective in how we do it. But if you learn the principles of things early on, I don't think you've ever left it. So I may not do JKD or Junfan all the time, and very rarely, to be honest with you at this point, but I can still trap. I understand the principles. I can still execute things. Mark and I joke sometimes because he'll say something to me, or if we ever are training for like at a camp or something, and I just don't remember what that is. And he'll show it, like, oh, I remember that now. I just don't remember what it was called. But I think that you start to take the essence of those things. And I think that I use Junfan or JKD as an example. That gives you a structure on how you analyze your fighting arts and your systems for the rest of your life. What's functional versus non-functional, and when is something non-functional?
Yeah.
Do you do it once and go, ah, this is horrible, I'm never doing that shit again? Or do you go, well, until I repped it 10,000 times or 1,000 times, then do I deem it not worthy or doesn't fit my body type or my style or whatever, or my athleticism? So again, I think it just gives you that framework, which is instrumental.
And one thing I have found interesting is how Bruce Lee referred to a round style kick is the Outtech or Nowtech is a hook kick. You know, but like I've made similar interpretations myself. I'm like, well, it's on the same line. If I throw it here, a shovel hook, like an upward. So, but I've always found that was interesting. I love just getting into the towel. Mike gave me my very first copy of the towel, and I've cracked it open. It's in the front seat of my car right now.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, if you look at, I mean, and then even like when I teach now, if I say go crossbody, people will look at me like, or go, well, that's side mount, or Keskatan, whatever. So you start, dating yourself, I guess, by how we refer to things. We used to, head and arm choke, where you pass the arm over. That's, so we used to call a scarf hold. Well, now it's a head and arm choke. Well, then it becomes something else. Everybody's got a fancy name for it, but you're right. I mean, if it comes on the same line as a hook, why wouldn't it be a hook kick?
Yeah.
Because it can change elevations, whether it goes low or high, it's still a hook kick. It's coming from that line of attack. So
I think Mike actually hit you up with like some obscure question I had and how something was categorized in the towel the other day about a high, medium, low on the jab.
Yeah.
Like what targeting range that was. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, and it's funny, it's like anything, you can read something in black and white, and then really it's up to the individual to interpret it. And sometimes interpretations are given to us because we're told by people above us that, no, this is how it's supposed to be. But then as time goes on, maybe you go like, doesn't make sense. Maybe I think it's this.
Maybe it's both.
Maybe it is. I mean, maybe it's a hybrid. At the end of the day, who's to say what is? I mean, I wouldn't say there's a complete wrong answer. There might be a better answer in that instance, But what do you classify? At some point, a low jab, if it's below the crotch, then really it's not hitting anything. So where are you targeting, as an example? So yeah, that's how I look at it. Sometimes I look at things too simplistic and it gets me in trouble. But
yeah, the only I was thinking that maybe that he could have been referring to the thigh, but I use that, but only when I'm like MMA sparring. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm wanting to maybe threaten touching that leg or something. Remember Benson Henderson doing that against Nate Diaz, I believe it was.
Because you can do that. I mean, you can look at it. I mean, in an MMA format, to strike a leg that low is it's a gamble because that means your head dips. So you're subject to a knee or a short round kick to the head that doesn't have to go very high. Sometimes I looked at a low jab as like the belly button, for lack of a better word. I looked at the medium or center jab as kind of like the solar plexus or right in the middle of the chest, just trying to put it somewhere. And then a high jab is going to be, to the head, somewhere in the facial area. And that's kind of how I kind of categorized it. I'm sure somebody will go, that's wrong, but that's okay.
No, I will say, right, it's around the same time you answered that question, I heard Vunak say the same thing. He like made these boxes on his body, and he was like, this is this here, and this is this here, and high, mid, low. But that's one thing I love, how those guys categorize everything, whether it's knife, whether it's stick or kickboxing. I really like the way it's put together. It's logical. It's rational,
Well, and a lot of these were born out of systems that were true martial systems, meaning warlike. So things had to be categorized simplistically. I mean, Kali, you can lose your mind. It can be as simple as basic math, 2 + 2 is 4. And it can be as troublesome as calculus if you let it be. But if you look at the root of it, everything was simplistic. If you look at a lot of movement techniques, and if you're going to execute them in a combat situation, like they were, no more than 3 moves. This is 1, 2, 3, because anything more than that, the brain has a hard time when it's stressed to continue on for a lot of people. So I think where they were born from, this is just John's point of view, and where they transitioned to, it was easy to correlate because they had to be easy to explain and easy to execute and teach. And easy to execute is kind of a probably not the best phrase because none of it was easy, but efficient would probably be better than easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what exactly was it that kind of led you to training at Inferno? How long have you been since you made that transition to doing more jiu-jitsu? Like, how long's that been now?
Oh, like what's the rephrase the question again? So how long is it? What led me to
you talked
Inferno?
about, yeah, and you talked about kind of transitioning more, not necessarily away from this stuff, but doing more jiu-jitsu, more grappling. And I know that I can't remember when you first started training at Inferno, but like when did all that kind of coalesce?
Well, Inferno really probably around 2014 when I retired from the Air Force. So I took a job down in Tampa for a wee bit, working at MacDill Air Force Base. And that was my second time. And I was training with Rob Kahn prior to me retiring. And then when I was down there, who was another pivotal person in my development. And a good friend. And when I moved up here, when I say up here to Northwest Arkansas, like any other guy who trains, like, well, I got to find a place to hang my hat, I guess. And just by pure luck or accident, or however you want to say it, I finally got, Mark wasn't doing a bunch of stuff. Mark was doing some stuff at somewhere else. Up here, I was looking for some different things, and picked up the phone, made a phone call, and came in, and then realized, oh, it's these guys that I knew when they were teenagers. So, and now they got these schools, and they're truly blessed. They've worked hard, and look at where they're at today. My hat's off to them, and I just kind of folded in, and I'm just kind of one of the old guys who's been around a bit who does whatever they want me to do as far as I teach or whatever, or hang out, but share ideas. And they've been and also been pivotal in my gi jiu-jitsu as I've gotten better with it over the years. So it was basically a give and take for the most part, but purely by luck and accident did I stumble across the young lads.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that's Mike and Caleb are how I heard about JKD, how I heard about McFan. McFan was supposed to teach a seminar at Clarksville Inferno when I was training there in like 07 or something, and he broke his toe. So he had to, I don't think it ended up getting rescheduled for some reason. Caleb might have moved to Bentonville or something, but it was around that time period. But then he taught at this event we used to have called the Winter Camp at Mount Magazine. And he taught a knife seminar with like a live blade. He's doing like live blade disarms or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I was opening my very first location and I missed that seminar too, man.
He's a gem that people don't realize is here. We have generations that look for the names that they see on YouTube or what they see on fight nights and whatever. And there's, it's the Michael Jordan kind of thought for everyone that makes it. There's hundreds of people that are just phenomenal guys. But because they don't step into the ring doesn't mean they're any less or more combative or not a good fighter. And the knowledge that's in Mark's head is tremendous. Just utterly tremendous, and he's an excellent teacher, and he likes to get in a bit of mischief as well. But back in the day, I can remember training, down on by the college when it was an old gas station, which has all been gentrified now. It's all been built up, but that's where we beat the crap out of each other. I mean, literally. I mean, most the school of hard knocks in the early years, right? Everything was tested. The way we tested it was you actually tested it, and then you would lick your wounds and assess it and go from there. Not necessarily bright in how it was done, but it was nonetheless it was a means to an end.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, this has been an awesome conversation. Like I kind of just a while back because of this, I've been in a little bit of a rabbit hole with some of this stuff. I was like, man, I need to have like a series of people on that have backgrounds in this stuff. We have trained extensively with Chai and have been around these ideas that can, convey some of the background, some of the people and what that's like. So awesome.
No, it's cool. I mean, you don't sometimes realize it until you think about it. Or you talk to somebody else. I mean, how lucky or fortunate we are. I mean, again, I was under Eric Polson, trained with him, for many, many years. And then Rob Kahn out of Tampa, Mark Lehman in Vegas with the guys in Vegas. I was there for over 2 years. So I was at that school where I think I truly kind of blossomed as a no-gi grappler to that higher level that I was there.
What was the name of that school? Cobra Kai?
Cobra Kai, yep.
Excellent.
And you got Sonny and Simu running now, I believe, actually.
I believe he is to name 93 guard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right. And then also, okay, so do you know who Will Walker is?
I know the name.
He was under Rodney forever, Rodney Hitchcock, Ted Wong guy.
Yeah.
Well, he's been on the podcast once before. He's a pro fighter. He trains with Brian Foster and Fort Smith.
Okay.
We're doing a series of podcasts over all the Ultimate Fighters, right? So we're doing the first 3 seasons, but he's the jiu-jitsu coach on the first 2 seasons. It may be after that. I can't remember. I'm only on season 2 right now. Gotcha. So I'm just wrapping it up. But Mark Lehman, yeah, that's a blast from the past. I was just wondering, I wonder what that guy's been up to.
No, I haven't. I mean, I've lost touch with a lot of these guys over the years, only because of just moving and retiring and getting older. But I mean, he was instrumental. He's a great guy. They all treated me well. I was just one of the guys. I was just Sarge. That's all they called me. That was it. Just did what they told me to do and did it. But that's how I got to I was roll with Forrest Griffin a couple times a week, or roll with Frank Mir, or which is terrifying. But But and then, like I said, in dealing with, and then Rob Kahn, and then a buddy of mine who's under Pedro Sauer and doing some clinics with Professor Sauer, and he's a black belt underneath Pedro. So I've been just fortunate. And Rob Kahn and I had this one conversation once. We were at dinner or whenever, just chatting, and we realized we started martial arts about the same time. I'm a bit older than he is, but he left his stuff in New York, went to California, right, to train jiu-jitsu. And him and a handful of other people we've talked about were probably there at that time frame, white belts to blue belt and things of that nature. And if you look at him today, where he was at in his craft of jiu-jitsu, and I kind of made the comment of God, I just wish I would have focused on maybe one thing and stuck with it, And he quickly reminded me, well, don't look at it that way, because you've got to train and see many things where most people don't, and everything that you did see influences what you do today. So what may seem to be unorthodox to many is very orthodox in your world. So yeah, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I am kind of blessed to have happened to meet people at the right time and happen to train with some of the best guys at the world at that time, and currently some of the legends that are still kind of floating around today, just by luck. Friendships, building bridges.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think I've done this. Maybe this is what you're saying, is like we train in all of these ranges, all of these different arts. For me, it's judo, jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, MMA. I've had dabbled in Kali and in stick fighting over the years as well, and had a pretty significant amount of time, gone to some seminars. But it's like, it really just made us a better martial artist. Like is an embodiment of a martial artist versus like, man, Big John's awesome at jiu-jitsu. It's like, well, Big John's a very well cultivated martial artist. Like with all of the stuff at play, it makes you more complete. Whereas like my kickboxers in here, they get taken down, they're done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, and we all fundamentally, if you think about, most of us have all started in martial arts because we wanted to fight or learn how to fight or be, I don't care if it's egos or whatever. I mean, there is something innate with a young man who wants to go do this and seeks joy in being punched or kicked in the face or smashed on the mat. And we do it day in and day out. I think as we get older, the blinders are lifted and you realize that, man, you're not the toughest guy in the world. And what you think was tough or thought was tough isn't. And I've come across many people that have humbled me over my years, and still get humbled often. But you then start to realize that this is a life journey, and it's not just about being tough or being able to win a fight. This is a whole person journey that you don't realize until you're in the middle of it sometime. And then when you do realize it, it's your choice and what you do with it. You see guys, and I'm sure you have, that have trained, are excellent, had all the prospect in the world, and they just disappear. And why? Don't know why often, but there's a myriad of reasons. But we continue on, and it's humbling, and it's greater to be part of something that's bigger than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So it's not about me, it's our I, it's about we, especially if you're rooted in any community, right? So that's to me what I find kind of enjoyable. So the camaraderie of it, and just kind of watching other people grow.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's really been it. Like, this is the martial arts community that we're talking about. Is the unique thing. Yeah.
You know, we used to be a Hokie community, and now all of a sudden we're all over pay-per-view and all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So
I just, you know, I have my first day back in classes this week with at the college, and I had this girl, her name was Regan, Rigan. I was like, you mean Hegan? Like the Machados? Right.
Nice. Yeah. So is it the Brazilian spelling, or is it the, which how do I pronounce that? So
I took, you know, we're doing Age of Exploration Discovery next week. So I went full circle with the Portuguese in Brazil and everything for her. So
no, that's awesome. That's well done.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Big John, it's been great. Thanks for taking the time to come on. I just thought this would be a cool conversation to have. So awesome.
No, I appreciate you asking, and thank you very much. And I think what you're doing is cool. So when you get your butt up here again, we'll see you.
Yes, sir. We'll see you soon.
All right. Take care, bud. Take care.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.